Da-da-dee. 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 There we go. Fucking audio's working. Yeehaw! Ladies and gentlemen, brothers, sisters, children of all ages, welcome to the Old Humble Distilling Company's Whiskey Happy Hour. Cheers and salutations and all the greetings and such. It is time to start the show, but first, a word from our sponsor, the Old Humble Distilling Company. Where's my fucking whiskey? The whiskey for you when you have to ask, where's my friggin' whiskey? Old Humble Distilling Company, Double Oak Rye. The whiskey that answers the question, where's my frickin' whiskey? The answer, of course, is right here in your glass. Old Humble Distilling Company's Double Oak Straight Rye. Where's my whiskey? Right here. We are, of course, the official whiskey of campfires and cookouts, good times and great stories. Get yours today at your local apothecary, the finer shops and such. Mr. Great Shots in the house. Cheers and salutations to you, my good man. Yes, that was actually, that's what I was singing, the Willy Wonka theme song from the original, I don't want to call it, the original movie, the Gene Wilder movie, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Cheers to all y'all out there. This is our almost daily now. It's like 4 or 5 times a week I do this. It's exhausting. It is absolutely exhausting. Oh my God. I am worn out. This is the most shows I don't know if it's the most shows I've done in a month, but it feels like the most shows I've done in a month. The most live shows, probably? I don't know. I'm exhausted. I'm full on exhausted. And if you saw last night when I went over the results so far this month of our quest for 100,000 views, it's going well. That's why I'm doing so damn many shows, is on this quest for 100,000 views. It's going well. Results are speaking for themselves. Big time echo. Oh, what is the echo? Maybe it's that. Turn that off. Any other outstanding microphones? I think I've got that. I think I got the echo fixed. No. Wait. Maybe it's the reverb on my microphone. Is that it? Did I fix it? Testing. 1, 2, 3. I think I just fixed it because it was my microphone. The voice of God mic that I had. But of course, I may have just turned off the audio entirely. Plug in my headphones and see what we got. No audio fixed? Okay, so there's no echo here. Is there echo here? Plug in my headphones. All right, we're good. We're good. We're all fixed. Awesome, sweet. It was this button right here, the voice of God microphone. Okay, we don't need that on. Anyway, technical difficulties aside, see, this is what happens when I work all day. I don't get a chance to make sure that all my technical stuff is worked out. And I actually have some cool new features that I'm going to be adding to the, adjust this down a little bit. A couple of cool new features I'm going to be adding to the stream over the next few days. And thank you, Mr. Great Shot, for helping me work this little kink out. No kink shaming either. It's against the rules. But I do have some cool new features I'm going to be adding over the next several days. And as always, remember, we hit 550 subscribers. We give away a free bottle of whiskey. We've been stuck on 530, 533, 535, 530, somewhere in that neighborhood. I am looking forward to giving away a bottle of whiskey. It's going to be dope as hell. I am the Old Humble guy, the owner and operator of the Old Humble Distilling Company, chief spokesperson, spokesmodel, race car driver, um, science analyst, legal. I'll do all the shit. I sweep the floors and mop the windows and do all the things. And I am very glad to have you here tonight. We are doing our happy hour shows 3 or 4 nights a week. And this is basically our chance to sit back, grab a drink, have a conversation like we used to have at bars back when we were allowed to talk to strangers and chill out at bars. Before the internet, when you could just look up who the best third baseman was over the last 2 decades, before all the stuff, when it was literally just people sitting at a bar and chatting and talking and shooting the shit. And tonight, I've kind of fallen into this pattern where the first night of the week, I do kind of an update on the big story. The big story, of course, in the entire universe right now is Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine and the atrocities and blah, 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 all the stuff. But not just digging into all the minutia of the day, but just kind of giving it a big oversight of what the hell's going on. Because it's my chance to catch up and see what the hell's going on. As far as the comings and goings of various things during the day and during the week. But it's also a chance just to get it off our chest and talk about it. If kind of a therapeutic unleashing of bad humors or whatever. No, I don't give a shit about what happened at the Oscars. I didn't watch the Oscars. The only thing I saw about what happened at the Oscars was the little episode between Will Smith's pool boy's girlfriend, and Chris Rock. And for what it's worth, Jada Pinkett goes to the same barber as I do, but my barber is much more affordable and better at his job. And I am looking forward to G.I. Jane 2 coming out as well. But the only thing I'm going to say about that, although I am going to make a joke about that every night this week, the only thing I'm going to say about that is it really, 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 really did look like Jada Pinkett being the toxic girlfriend looking at Will Smith and going, the pool boy would have stood up for me. And then Will Smith having to stop laughing at a joke that was legitimately funny. And then he'll make an ass out of himself just to show that, he's just as much a man as the pool boy. So that's all I'm really going to say about that. I don't give a shit about what rich people do in their stupid fucking award ceremonies. I don't care about the Oscars. I haven't watched the Oscars at all, except for Ricky Gervais's jokes about everybody. I think, that dude, what's his face from Family Guy? Not Seth. It might have been Seth. No, not Seth. When the creator of Family Guy made all the jokes about seeing all the actresses' boobs. That was funny. Moose Gal in the house? Moose Gal's in the house. What's up, Moose Gal? Cheers and salutations to you as well. I can't see any of the comments. The light is right in my eyes. I cannot see. It's right. I mean, it is right in my eyes. I can't see anything. But what I am going to do is I'm going to come out of studio mode. Maybe I'll be able to see that now. New face. Talk about a new face for the brand. Right before the pandemic, I had this idea to do a Miss Old Humble Distilling Company and crown a pageant winner. And then the pandemic happened, and we kind of nominated a pageant winner. We didn't have a pageant. We nominated a winner. We had an old Humble Miss Old Humble for a couple of years as a brand ambassador, and then I just didn't do it again in 2021. But now it's 2022. Maybe I should do it. Maybe I should do a Miss Old Humble Distilling Company and have a little calendar made with Miss Old Humble Distilling Company. Do a little 12-month photo shoot. That'd be kind of cool, I think. Maybe not. I don't know. My shadow's back here. Oh, I know what's going on. I don't have the overhead light on. That's why everything looks weird in here. And I don't have any of the other lights. See, I don't have any soft lighting. Hang on a second. Be right back. All right, maybe that worked. Let's try it. Did that help the lighting situation? That helps the lighting situation. Didn't fix it. I can still see my shadow back here, but it's better. Anyway, I mean, you can still see my face, so it didn't solve the problem. Uh, but anyway, so tonight, tonight and tomorrow night, the middle of the week, I do more of a nonsensical type of thing, more science based, maybe more just kind of a fun observational type of thing. I've done flat Earth stuff or round Earth stuff. There is no such thing as a flat Earth. Round Earth stuff, math stuff, uh, philosophical stuff. I've got like four big philosophical topics that I really, really would like to monologue on and philosophize about. Maybe even do a chat and sip, a sip and chat, a sip and chill, whatever. Sip and chat and chill, chat and sip and chill. Anyway, maybe do a panel thing tomorrow when we talk about, because I'm leaning tomorrow towards can money buy happiness? Spoiler alert, yes, it can. Further spoiler alert, maybe it can't. But, that'd be a good conversation. Good conversation, that's what I'm looking for. And then of Thursday night, we do usually do a trivia night. We have done a trivia night more often than not in the last few weeks. We've done trivia night. We do our unhinged series. We do fun on Thursday night. Good whiskey fueled nonsense on Thursday nights, and that's what Thursday nights are all about. And tonight, I'm going to do my best to keep up with chat. So don't mind redecorating too. Oh, you're redecorating rooms now. It's good for you, Moose Gal. I've seen your swatches, your paint swatches on your Facebooks. That looks it looks like you've got your work quite cut out with you, cut out for you. I stand with Chris Rock. I don't stand with either one of them. I don't care. It's just stupid boy games that are. Yeah. I mean, look. I watched the video, the clip. Chris Rock tells his dumb joke. Will Smith laughs at the joke, and I swear to God, he's laughing at the joke. And when the camera cuts away, good and damn well what happened was he's laughing at the joke, and he looks over at Jada, and Jada looks at him and goes, "I'm sorry, you can't see what I." She looks over at him and goes, "Excuse me," and then he goes, and he, of course, has to get up and make an ass out of himself to show that he really does have a. It was an over-the-top demonstration, is what I'm saying. It was a demonstration. It was a performative demonstration. I don't think it was staged. But I think it was a performative demonstration because he is whipped, just fully, completely, totally emasculated. I know they have their open relationship, whatever they want to, but I swear to God, I've seen these traits in a relationship. She has got him fully and totally emasculated. And he did a performative, over the top action to make it appear that, he's the big one. He's the big man in this relationship, but whatever. I don't honest to God, honest. Beyond that, this is their trash fire, and they can warm their hot dogs on their trash fire all they want. I've got my own good relationship. I've seen the traits of toxic relationships. I know how to avoid toxic relationships. I know how to identify toxic relationships. I know how to maintain good relationships because that's what we do is maintain good relationships. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. Never, ever, 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 ever take relationship advice from single people. They don't know what they're doing. And if their relationship doesn't look like a relationship you want to have, don't take relationship advice from them either. So take with that what you will. Because I know a lot of single people. How do I phrase this diplomatically? I know a lot of single people who, when you talk to them for even a brief moment, you understand why it is that they're single. And you're like, oh, yeah, I get it. Okay. I see now. Yes, I get it. And then, that's when you either change the subject quickly or you take a drink to the other table and you move along. Jesus, chat is lit. Uh, go through another. Why is toxic masculinity? Hang on, let me catch up to Moose Gal here. Great shot and good evening. Uh, you do trivia on another friend's channel. Well, you can do trivia on our channel on Thursdays. We give away $20 in boozy bucks to the person who wins the trivia game. And if you win, you can roll those boozy bucks over from week to week to week to week. And you can apply. It's like a gift card, gift certificate, whatever. $20 value. You can spend it at the company store or not spend it at the company store if that's what you want to do. You can just hold on to them forever. Get enough of it. You get a case of whiskey if that's what you want to do. I'm not going to, I mean, you got to pay shipping and handling and all that shit. I'm not going to pay that for you. But if you want a case, I can ship a case. Why is there toxic masculinity? Hey, there's toxic masculinity. There's also toxic femininity. And I don't, with, in the particular case that we're discussing, briefly discussing, because I am going to move off of it, the relationship is toxic, but I don't think it's toxic. I don't think the root of the toxicity is toxic masculinity. I think the root of the toxicity is toxic femininity that has grown toxic masculinity out of it. But that is a deeper discussion for a actual relationship coach who could like look at the nuance. I'm not that familiar. I know they have some kind of open relationship and you know it became an open relationship after Jada decided to fuck everybody under the sun. Bravo to her. If she can get it, she should get it. She's a comely lass. She is quite the looker. But uh, hey, Will's got to handle that shit, and he's got to handle his shit too. So nobody looks good in this situation. Nobody looks good in this situation. So uh, and a lot of eyes overlook the one in the center of the entire sordid affair, so to speak. Uh, Disney trivia was fun. Thank you. I thought the Disney trivia was fun as well. And maybe we'll come back to Disney trivia. I want to kind of spread the trivia around and maybe come back to do another whiskey trivia night. Do another whiskey trivia night and maybe do another couple of whiskey trivia nights. I like the classic trivia myself a lot more than I like the Disney trivia, but we're definitely gonna have more trivia nights. I'm not sure if we're gonna do one this week, but we're definitely gonna do more trivia nights. So you can count on that. It's a great way to bring an audience engagement and engage with the audience and have everybody participate in the show. There may even be better ways to do the trivia where it's not me asking the question and then I have to wait. But having pared it down to 10 questions, it's not a cumbersome task to do the trivia stuff. So there's that. Mr. G. I know you're single, Moose Cow, and I am not lining up to get relationship advice from you. But I do have, I mean, I have my own relationship, so it's fine. Um, so there you go. I don't know what you're asking about, but I can tell you that is how we roll with our trivia. I mean, basically, it's a big scoreboard, and you can roll those points forward. And maybe we'll have a tournament of champions, like the top 5 people can actually come on the show, and we'll do like a live trivia. Maybe we'll do that, and the winner will get some kind of cool merch package. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, but the big topic of tonight's show, the one that I wanted to tackle tonight, last week, and probably the week before. Um, Last week and probably the week before, I have hand waved over. Well, hang on. First off, let's talk about just updates in the war right now in general. And the reason I do updates in the war, 2 reasons. One, my own mental health. I have great concerns about the instability. I mean, it's not a fundamental concern for. I don't think it's going to shake the fabric of our society to its core or whatever. But the concern is that this could be a destabilizing factor that 10 years from now we could look back to and say that's where it began. Um, and a destabilizing factor that, I mean, under a different scenario, just a few years ago, under a different scenario, something like this could have broken apart NATO, could have separated the driven rifts in between allies, could have been a major fracturing point a major fracturing point of the Northern Alliance. But as it is, it's not a major fracturing point of the Northern Alliance yet. But this sort of thing could be a very destabilizing event because any type of conflict, any type of war can spill out beyond its confined spaces. We saw that, we've seen it in several other conflicts where they just kind of grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. With Vietnam, the war got outside of the borders of Vietnam. With Korea, the war got outside of the borders of Korea, where, originally it was just North and South Korea fighting, then the United States gets in, then China gets in, and Russia's tangentially involved, and all this stuff that's a big mess with Korea as well. That's how, World War One just blobbed out all over the map. World War II blobbed out all over the map. Things get unpredictable when you're in the midst of unpredictable and chaotic events. Outcomes become unpredictable and hard to forecast. And if a stray missile blows up, crosses a border, if a airline gets blown up, if a cruise ship goes down, that's how the United States got drawn into World War One with the Lusitania going down, and that's these creeping unexpected events that draws people or draws nations into armed conflict, and that's the unsettling nature of it. So one part of why I've enjoyed doing these updates is just to understand what's going on and give me a chance to really focus in on the details and facts of what we've seen over the past 7 days, and kind of get a feel for what's really happening, or how much we don't know, how much we do know, how much misinformation is flying back and forth. There's a whole lot of stuff going all over the map, all over the horizon. And I try to, I see misinformation just as much as you see information. You see conflicting reports, you see stuff that you're like, oh, that doesn't sound right. I'm not sure if that's true. And I try to just take that stuff with a grain of salt and try to pin down, to drill down into the core of what we think we can accept as what we know, which is a whole lot of qualifying words, I know. But the other thing, that's just like the mental health type of thing of just being able to vent it out and work with the knowledge. But the other thing is, well, I guess that's working with the actual knowledge and kind of being able to settle into the facts. But the other thing is just kind of giving other people a chance to talk to, vent your concerns, vent your worries and issues, and just kind of get down to the baselines of what it is, what the hell's going on. Just relax and talk about it. And I'm sure there was another reason other than that I just can't remember it off the top of my head. It's evading me at the moment. But with this particular, brush my Jada Pinkett hairdo here. I think a shaved head should be called the Jada Pinkett from now on. So what we've seen over the past week, what we've seen over the past 6 days prior to today, was kind of everything grinding to a halt. We've seen Russia really shitting the bed when it comes to this invasion, not achieving any of their initial goals, not achieving any of their strategic goals, not achieving any of their military goals, not achieving any of their political goals, not achieving any economic goals, not achieving any of their geopolitical goals. The entire world coming together and opposing their action, the entire world coming together and sanctioning them. Of course, the entire world failed to prevent this from happening to begin with. But I think that just goes to show that if you encounter somebody who is just absolutely committed to doing something stupid, they're going to do the stupid thing. And you know what? We're going to flip over to the chat window so we can see chat participating as well. There's my cursor. So y'all can chime in as I see it move. I'll lean forward and read because my eyes are soft because I'm an old man. But we have seen Russia fully and totally shit the bed. We've seen their logistics be just absolutely atrocious. We've seen their actual execution be absolutely atrocious. We've seen their warfighting capability be absolutely embarrassingly atrocious. Um, it's just been bad. Um, I don't watch much, so I don't watch much, so I'm not sure what's going on. But what I've seen so far, it looks like Putin is absolutely. That's exactly what it looks like he's doing. Um, I mean, he's just done badly. We thoroughly overestimated Russia's capacity to wage war. And I talked with a buddy of mine who was a Marine in the late '90s, right at the time that the Soviet Union collapsed, and Russia was, and you know they were training for to fight Russians. That was the military's job, was preparing to go to war against Russia or the Soviet Union and he was a Marine, active duty Marine at the time when the Soviet Union was collapsing. So they were kind of in between missions almost, kind of a stand ready type of mission. And he's like, yeah, I had no idea that these guys were that bad. But then we were putting it in context and talking about it. And like the Soviet Union never successfully projected power much further than their borders. They were in Eastern Europe, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland. That's where they were able to project power. East Germany, East Berlin, Afghanistan, which was also on the borders of the Soviet Union, uh, Cuba, but Cuba had its own military and their own military capacity. Soviet Union was never really able to project power and military force into Africa. They were never able to project military force beyond their borders in any real meaningful way. Even the soldiers that were in Central America were Cuban soldiers. Cuba sent soldiers to Angola. Soviet Union didn't so much do that. They had naval force, uh, but could never really project. At least that's the context that he gave me. And he said, when I think about it that way, then it kind of makes sense that they're just really bad at projecting power, and that's degraded over time because they've just not been good at it. Uh, I don't know. I don't know how true that holds. Uh, I don't know how reliable that analysis is, but it is. It's certainly an analysis, and it's something. It's one direction to think about it. What's Mr. Rayshot say there? Um, yeah, and see, bombing hospitals. See that was their mo. That was Putin's mo in Chechnya, and that was one of the concerns when all this shit broke out. It was uh, they didn't it didn't look like a conquering force, it didn't look like an occupying force, but it certainly looked like a force that was capable of executing the plan that they executed in Chechnya, which was basically, if it's a building that's greater than 1 story tall, knock it down to the ground and clear knock it to rubble, clear the rubble, rebuild on the foundations of the old city. And that's what they did in Grozny in Chechnya. I believe it was Grozny. Uh, yeah, Grozny and Chechnya. That's what they did there after a disastrous initial fight. But and that's what it looks like they're doing in Mariupol. That they just they don't have the manpower to take the city, so they're just gonna burn the fucking thing down to the ground. We can't have it, neither can you. And one of the concerns at the very beginning was that they would come out with their nukes and do that. If we can't have it, neither can you. That they would sabotage the nuclear plants, that they would sabotage Chernobyl, that they would sabotage, basically just make it impossible for Ukraine to continue. If NATO wanted Ukraine, NATO could have it. But the Ukraine that NATO got was going to be uh, irradiated wasteland because of faulty uh, nuclear plants and all this other nonsense. Uh, Thankfully, they didn't do all of that. They've attacked nuclear plants, which is just fucking batshit crazy. But they didn't blow them up. They have not created a civilian nuclear catastrophe. Probably because speculation on my part here, NATO leaders said, "Look, if you do this, like we're going to consider that a nuclear attack, and we will put an end to this immediately." Um, so that's my hunch as to why it wasn't done. But again, I'm not in the halls of power. I couldn't begin to guess why it was that way. Oh, well, there you go. USAF Saudi Arabia during Gulf War. Bravo for you. Thank you. Thank you for that insight. I appreciate it. What is that? What is that? I don't know what this is. I don't know what that thing is. Um, feel bad for Ukrainians and innocent Russians, but Americans must bring down the gas price. By the way, it's not. It's by the way, yeah. I mean, well, bringing down the gas price. I think I talked about this previous week. Bringing down the gas price isn't the best way to bring down the gas price. Isn't oil and oil supplies and oil reserves. Best way to bring down gas prices is find alternatives for gas. Find alternatives for oil. The you could reduce your oil usage by 20% through conservation, and that's cheaper than bringing down the price of oil. That's easier than bringing down the price of oil 20%, bringing down the price of gas 20%. I mean, gas right now is 360. Bringing it down 20% would bring it down by 60, 70 cents, knocking it down to $1.90. We're never going to see $1.90 gas again. Exxon's not going to fucking allow that to happen. Zero chance that is ever going to happen. But if the demand for gas goes down, then the price for gas goes down. If the demand for fossil fuels goes down, the price of fossil fuels go down. And if you use 20% less, you save 20% off of your gas price. And then the price drops down because they give you incentive to use more. And then you end up saving more and more and more and more. I mean, that's just, that's how it works. And if we had been proactive 15 years ago, 20 years ago, over the last 5 years of aggressively building capacity of alternatives faster than the growth rate of energy needs, then we wouldn't be in the situation we are in now. But we keep going back to that cheap oil, that cheap oil addiction, and it doesn't help us. We, I thought we've talked about this lesson for years, and it's not just produce more domestically; it's produce more energy domestically, produce more energy. And there was a president that we had that said all of the above approach: make more energy generation using natural sources, using hydrocarbon, using all the sources. But really, if 20% of our production is alternatives, then 30% of our new production should be alternatives, or 40% of our new production should be alternatives, so that we can start growing that sector out and using less of the other. And then that makes the price of it all go down because you're using less of it. It certainly brings the cost down, not just the price, but the cost, because the price and the cost are two different things. The cost actually, the price is just the price that you pay, the monetary price. But the cost is also the environmental damage, the payments to countries that don't exactly like us, propping up the Russian military for years. Jesus, that put the Russian military over the barrel in the mid 2000s when the price dropped so low after the overproduction to shale oil and fracking here in the central states. The overproduction that dropped the price from what was it, up around 120-ish or so, brought the price of oil down to like $30, something like that. And the money coming in to petrostates was, well, it wasn't just the overproduction. It was the overproduction, and Saudi Arabia and OPEC states were driving down the price, aggressively driving down the price. But that put Russia over the damn barrel because they couldn't afford to pay upkeep of their military. That was bad for Russia. It was very, very, very bad for Russia. It was great for Russia when the price started going back up. It was great for Saudi Arabia too. and all the other petro states. It was great for Texas when the price started going back up, because Texas was, when they say drill here, drill now, make the oil price go low. What they're really also saying is, fuck you, Texas. We're gonna drive your unemployment rate up by 2 points, because that's exactly what happened. Back into chat. Sorry, I'm leaning back and relaxing and not paying attention to chat. And y'all are chatting up a storm over here. Oh, it's $5. Oh, that's right. You're up in Illinois, and yeah, gas is very expensive up in Illinois. That is true. That is very true. It is much more expensive in Central Texas than it is out here on the coast, too. By the way, I mean, we have all this refining capacity that gas doesn't have to go very far. Anyway, but we've seen a major change in the last 24 hours. Like the first 6 days, everything kind of ground to a halt. The last 24 hours, we've seen a dramatic redeployment of Russian forces outside of Ukraine, or outside of Kyiv. They're moving north. There was a large group of, I think, 10,000 units that were trapped by Ukrainian forces that were on the northwest side of Kyiv, if I'm not mistaken. They're redeploying forces from Kyiv and in the north, around off to the east and back into the Donbass region. Russia has basically said, we failed in our original objective. Although their exact words were, we have succeeded in doing the thing that we said we weren't trying to do. And now I think they said they've weakened the capacity of the Ukrainian military to fight, which was the objective, not the objective of taking Kyiv and actually controlling territory. And all indications were, in the early days of the war, the goal was to take Kyiv, expecting the Ukrainian military to evaporate, take Kyiv, capture Zelensky, remove him from power, execute him, likely, and then bring in Lukashenko or Petroshenko, whoever the puppet master or the puppet was that was previous to, I think it was Petroshenko, because Lukashenko is the Belarusian president, I think. I get those two mixed up. Anyway, and then have a referendum to join Russia, because Russia declared Ukraine as a colonial province of Russia. So basically do the same thing they did in Crimea, of having a referendum, joining the entire country to Russia as a province, in the same way that the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic was a province or a state of the Soviet Union, one and the same. But Ukraine has been independent now for 30 years, and they were not so much interested in doing that. And all the shit went tits up when Russia invaded. So Russia has declared that their initial objective was not really their initial objective. They were just doing a feint into Kyiv to occupy the forces out of the east, and now they're going to focus back in the east in the Donbass region, which is what they really wanted to do, was to secure the Donbass region. Generally speaking, and here's why we know that's bullshit, because generally speaking, not always, but generally speaking, when a country is doing a feint, and feint being a fake military advance to draw attention over here, so that the alternative military advance, the real military advance, can be seen. We did this in the Gulf War, in Iraq. We did an initial strike, so like the borders here with Iraq. We do the initial strike down here in the south to draw Iraqi forces to the south. But then Norman Schwarzkopf called it the Hail Mary play, where he brought all the forces up around to the north and went around the Iraqi army and encircled them from the back. Brilliant military strategy that worked so well, because we had basically taken out their eyes, taken out their ears, and we were able to go around the Iraqi forces and basically cut them off from Baghdad. The way a feint works is you don't lose 25% of your army when you do the feint. It's like a head fake. You do this, they go that way. But if you do this and snap your neck, you did not do a very good feint. This is why we know it's bullshit, because they lost like 25% of their forces that they were attacking with. That is not how you do a feint. That is how you do a very bad invasion. And they got their asses handed to them. Do I think Putin wants to go back to Cold War? Back to the main cam. Do I think Putin wants to go back to a Cold War empire? I think that has been his stated goal. I think he has stated an ambition. He has stated publicly that the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century was the collapse of the Soviet Union. He has stated publicly and repeatedly that it is a shame, it is unfortunate that there are Russian people, because of a stroke of a pen, there are Russian people that are no longer in Russia. He has watched the decline of the Russian Federation for several years. We are in a cycle. Ever since World War II, there's been an echo bust in Russia. Every 20 or so years since World War II, there's an echo bust of a generation of people who weren't born in the 1940s because of World War II. They lost something like 20 million people, and that was a literal gap of a generation, a literal loss of a generation of a huge percentage of a generation of people. And if you look at Russia's population chart, whatever, most population charts are like a kind of a triangle where it goes down, where the oldest people at the top there is the fewest, and then it kind of goes down like this, where the youngest people is the largest people, the largest population cohort. The United States kind of goes down, has the boomers, and then Gen X, my generation, it kind of comes in a little bit because the boomers didn't have as many kids. The boomers out the World War II generation, the greatest generation, outbirthed the boomers generation. So it's kind of like a little bubble at the top, and then it kind of grows back out again. Russia, when you look at their population chart, it kind of comes down. It bumps out this way, and then it bumps out again, and then it bumps out again, due to this echo bust from World War II. We're in one of those echo busts where the population kind of contracts a little bit. This is an ongoing issue in Russia, and it happens every couple of decades, where the population contracts, the economy contracts, everything contracts, and Russia goes through some hard times. We're in one of those cycles right now. It's exacerbated by Putin's mismanagement and kleptocracy government, where they actually skim resources out of the country that otherwise would be going to growing the country and growing the economy of the country. But he's like publicly stated that he wishes he could get these people back, that Latvia and Estonia and Lithuania should be part of Russia, that Transnistria should be part of Russia, Georgia should be part of Russia. And it sends little shivers through these Soviet states, former Soviet states, that if they're not friendly with Russia and friendly with Putin, then they could be invaded, just like Georgia was. And Ukraine, he has stated several times that Ukraine and Russia are one country. They are not independent of each other. They are one together. And part of that goes back to the history of Ukraine and the history of Russia from the very beginning and the founding of the country, by way back in the 12th century, which I intend to get to before we close out today, because it is a fascinating history between those two countries. But yeah, I kind of think, I don't know if he wants a full, I think he wants a return of Russian the Russian status as a superpower, the way it was in the 1980s. I think that's a publicly stated aim of his. But the reality is that the world has passed them by. They probably weren't as great a superpower as they were, or as they were perceived to have been. They might have been. It's hard to tell, but when the economic systems started to diverge in the 80s. That's when the world passed the communist command economies by. And you can see this in the growth of South Korea and North Korea put side by side. Because through the 40s and 50s, South Korea and North Korea were really side by side. How do I do this? They're really side by side like this. And then it wasn't until about the late 70s, early 80s, when the capitalist systems, when we all embraced this supply side world market type of uh, vision of capitalist growth, that the capitalist economies all just like took off. They just North Korea took off, South Korea took off, North Korea flatlined. We were able to outgrow and outspend and out produce the Soviet Union. We were able to outgrow, Western Europe was able to outgrow and outspend and outproduce Eastern Europe. It was a vast, and that's when China started to reform their economic processes and their economic system to go from a fully controlled economy to a more market-based economy, and kind of do a hybrid where the state owns half of the where it's like state-owned corporations that participate in a market economy. It's fucked up. And if you want to participate in the economy over there, the state has to own half your company. It's messed up. It's really weird. But that's what happened in the 80s. That's how we got where we are. And we didn't beat the Soviet Union with missiles and satellites and tanks and planes. We beat the Soviet Union with Pepsi and blue jeans and dollar bills. That's how we want. That's with grocery store shelves that were stocked full of food with pomegranates and zucchinis and apples and McDonald's on every corner. That's how we beat the Soviet Union. We beat them economically, and then they collapsed under their own weight. Um, so yeah, I think Putin has expressed this return to Russian glory, but the world's passed them by unless they do serious economic reforms and get back to. And even then, I don't even know if they can do serious economic reforms and get back to the same glory that they had been at. I'm skeptical. I'm thoroughly skeptical. But he's also working out of an attitude of grievance and uh, uh, heading a country that he thinks should be respected more on the world stage. And he also says that in his speeches when he talks about how the world doesn't give Russia enough credit for beating the Nazis. The world doesn't give Russia enough credit for, uh, you know, world achievements, for scientific achievements, for all this. Like Russia doesn't get enough credit. We don't get enough credit. We're not. We're always getting picked on. We're always getting looked down on. We're always being like, fucking get a pacifier, you big crybaby. Quit invading countries. You suck. Um, so there you go. Yes, I think so. I think that is exactly what he wants. Um, I don't know what that thing is. What is that? Can y'all see that? What is that? What is that? What is that? What is that thing? I don't know what that is. That's weird. Okay, so where are we at? Am I all updated? Um, so yeah, Mr. Great Shot, you nail a perfectly valid point there as well. Ukraine has a shit ton of resources, but it's more. I think it's more than just the resources. If you look at the shared history of the countries, uh, if you look at the shared history of the country, because it's more than just Ukraine. It's more than just Ukraine. He has his eye on other nations. He's made several threats on Estonia and Latvia, countries that used to be part of the Soviet Union, part of the Russian Empire. Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania were part of the Russian Empire before they were part of the Soviet Union. And when the Soviet Union started to collapse, they were the first ones to get the hell out of the Soviet bloc. Uh, so they've been independent longer than anybody else from the Soviet Union. And there is also a lot of Russian-speaking people and ethnically Russian people in Latvia, in those Baltic states. But, I mean, you know this. They are very, very, very opposed because they were brutally put down in several rebellions. And they don't want any part of that shit anymore. And I can't blame them. In the world, there are no actual... That thing's right in the middle of... in the world, are there actually... actually still empires? Yes! Well, I don't know if they're still empires per se. So the technical term of an empire is a country, is a combination of two sovereign kingdoms. So the Holy Roman Empire was neither Holy Roman nor an empire. So that doesn't count. The empire of, when France was an empire, Imperial France, that would have been probably the last true... Well, I guess the Soviet Union would have been the last true empire, except they weren't a kingdom of kingdoms. They were a republic of republics, in the same way the United States is a republic of republics. France, Germany was an empire. Yeah, Japan was an empire, the 1940s. That was probably the end of the imperial system. World War II brought the end of the imperial system. I think, I haven't given that, I don't know, I haven't really given a whole lot of thought to it, but I think that's probably the end of the imperial system, when you had empires that were literally destroyed through German occupation and liberation and, royalty that was done for. And then, well, of course, there was the British Empire. Holy shit, what am I thinking? Of course, the British Empire. The British Empire was uh, steadily decolonialized, steadily pulled apart, with nations getting their independence progressively through the 50s and 60s and into the 70s. France's last imperial holding would have been Tunisia? No. And Gold? No. Yeah, that's... I think Britain's... Uh, the British Empire... That Britain, I think, has the last true imperial holdings. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, chat, by all means. I don't know for sure. I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought. I don't think there are safety ducks in the house. I am going to buy the Velocity of Information, and I will donate it to the public library. That is true. Yes, The Empire Strikes Back. The Empire was brought down, though, in the next movie. So that probably was the last Empire, when the Return of the Jedi brought the Empire to its knees, like fully destroyed the Empire when the second Death Star was destroyed. I think that's probably the last Empire. But British Empire, I think that was probably the last Empire. And we didn't watch it. I was not alive at the time. But the decolonialization and independence movements of the 50s and 60s brought the end of the imperial system for sure. But as far as Ukraine and Russia go, Putin has said several times that he considers them to be one person, one people group, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he's not entirely wrong, because they have a shared history. Those two countries have a shared history that goes all the way, way back to the 12th century. Prior to the 12th century, the Ukrainian area, Crimea, Ukrainian steppes, and the Russian steppes, they were colonized by Slavic peoples coming from the east. The Romans would have called them barbarian hordes, but that was the people groups there at the time. The first known modern state in that area was the Kievan Rus. The Kievan Rus were Vikings, of all people, who had traveled the rivers from northern Europe. They traveled the rivers down, ported their boats over to the next river, looking for markets to sell their goods and sell their slaves and sell all the stuff that they picked up along the way, looking for places to raid and people to. But they didn't find a whole lot of cities to raid because there weren't a whole lot of cities because the barbarian hordes didn't build cities. That's why the Romans didn't conquer them because they weren't organized enough to be conquered. Uh, it's the ironic thing about the East European hordes. The West European hordes were organized enough to be conquered and organized into into governing bodies and governing systems, and be organized. But the people in the East were not organized enough to conquer because there were different disparate tribes. They couldn't conquer them. They literally couldn't conquer them because they weren't organized enough to be conquered and organized into groups to be governed. So that was their saving grace. But the first organized people groups that they found were Viking settlements down on the Dnieper River that literally goes through Kiev and down into the Black Sea. And Vikings would go down into the Black Sea. They'd get back on their boats. They'd travel. That's how far the Vikings went. The Kievan Rus were literally Vikings who settled in the Kiev area and established that settlement. There were, over time, a large kingdom that was established there, and I believe it was the 14th century. Don't hold me to this. Going from memory, from what I've read in the last 3 days, literally preparing for this particular show, because I'm refreshing my memory of what I had seen in the past, trying to figure out, I want to find out where Russia came from. Do you know where the French came from, or the Germans came from, and all these people? Like, where the hell did Russia come from? They've always been there. Nope, they came from Vikings. The Kievan Rus moved north, established 5 principalities, and at the height of their power, they had a kingdom that controlled all the way from the Black Sea, Crimea, and the Black Sea, all the way up to basically Finland, up there in the tundra area. And then over time, the organization of that kingdom kind of collapses. They fall into 5 separate principalities. The Golden Horde comes in the 14th century, takes over all that area, subjugates all the princes. The princes are paying tribute to the Golden Horde, and the Golden Horde is bringing their riches down to Constantinople. And then in the 14th century, 15th, I think it might have been the 16th century. 16th century, Ukraine was part of the Polish-Lithuanian Confederacy, if I recall. And Moscow and Russia were, they were building their little kingdom, their little tsardom over there. But that shared existence, that shared founding of the Kievan Rus. The Kievan Rus is literally the root word for Russia. When they were subjugated by the Golden Horde, the capital of the Kievan Rus, the primary city of Kievan Rus, moved from Kiev all the way up to Moscow. They have a shared history. They have a shared founding history. They have a shared origin history. The two countries have a shared history. But after separation from the Polish-Lithuanian Confederacy and being conquered by the Imperial Russians prior to 1917, and then being taken over by the Bolsheviks in 1917, when the Bolsheviks took over Russia and turned it into the Soviet Union, they were part of the Soviet Union. They had their own little civil war. Ukraine became a socialist Soviet state as a part of the Soviet Union in 1917, stayed a part of the Soviet Union until the Soviet Union collapsed, and then they regained their independence. They were invaded by the Nazis. They have a shared history. And I understand if you take a particular point of view on history, why one Mr. Vladimir Putin would look at it and go, well, they're a part of our country. They should be a part of our country. But you can also look at it and see that that's just a bullshit cover story to justify an illegal invasion. There's literally no reason for this invasion to happen other than to stop NATO from, or to stop Ukraine from joining NATO and to prevent NATO from wanting Ukraine to join them. And one of the most disturbing things that I've seen over the last 7 days is Zelensky saying that he's open for peace talks and even willing to put the option of neutrality back on the table as long as he has security guarantees from Russia. And that is a full-on loss for the West. If they were on a path to join NATO before the war starts and Russia invades Ukraine with the unstated policy goal of preventing them from joining NATO, and then as a condition of peace, they say, okay, well, we'll drop our efforts to join NATO, then that is a full-on loss for the West and a full-on win for Russia. And I really, 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 truly hope that the statements that I've seen and heard that the plan for Ukraine to join NATO was never really a real plan, that it was just kind of an idea that was out there, and NATO was never really going to have them join to begin with. I really, really, really hope that that's just nonsense. Because them warming up to the West is literally what started this war. It's literally what started Russia's invasion back in 2014. It's them. The threat of joining NATO is what started the military action. That's what happened to Georgia. That's what's happened to Ukraine, and with all the other countries that have now expressed interest, with Sweden and Finland and Moldova and there's another one that it's just evading me right now. I'm sure it'll come to me in about 3 hours when I chill out. Just the simple threat of joining NATO is what causes an invasion to happen. When the reality is, if they had already been a part of NATO, the invasion never would have happened. I mean, if NATO's not willing to stand up and protect, if they're only willing to protect the territory that has already been a part of NATO and not the territory for countries that are expressing their desire to join NATO, that's a serious flaw in the NATO membership process. Serious flaw. I mean, that'd be like, you go to prom and you see this girl and you're like, I think she's pretty. I think I want to dance with her. And just the stated desire that you want to dance with her gets the ex-boyfriend to come over and punch you in the face. That's not a good way to run a business. That's not a good way to have a relationship with people. It's not a good way to have a relationship with countries either. Because you should be able to dance with a pretty girl if you want to dance with a pretty girl. If she wants to dance with you as well. Let's see here. Book donation to the library is tax deductible. The city also invites you to ride in the engine. I don't think that's how it works here in Humble, but I'm sure the tax deductible, the $20 or $30 tax deductible book will be fine. But I don't think I'm going to get an invitation to ride on the fire truck during the 4th of July parade. I don't know if we even have a 4th of July parade here in Humble. I know we have a Christmas parade, but I don't know if we have a 4th of July parade. I don't know. I can't say for sure that we have a 4th of July parade. I probably have to look into that. Anyway, John Jacobs is in the house. Cheers to John Jacobs. My old friend. Me and John, we go back ways. No, we don't. I'm just making that up. What do we got? Putin knows Biden is weak president. All right, so let's address this. Now we know Russia has a weak military, but with nukes. Are they more dangerous now? No, just the same. All right, so let's address the elephant in the room. Would this have happened 4 years ago? If the former guy was still president now, would this have happened? Did this happen because Biden's a weak president? Well, let's be perfectly clear. The former guy clearly was critical of NATO, said it several times out loud during the closing remarks of a NATO conference, refused to support Article 5 of the NATO relationship. His own military national security advisors have stated that had he been reelected, he would have removed the United States from the NATO alliance. So, to answer, let's posit whether or not this would have happened had the former guy been reelected. Yeah, it may not have happened because the NATO alliance would have been so fractured that Ukraine wouldn't have been even wanted to join. The membership acceptance plan wouldn't have mattered, and there would have been no path for Ukraine to join NATO. So, in that context, maybe not. Maybe there wouldn't have been an invasion because the former guy would have so fucked over NATO and the Northern Alliance that it wouldn't have had to happen. Because, like I said, the reason that this happened was to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. And if there's no NATO for Ukraine to join, then there's nothing to prevent because NATO can't join, or Ukraine can't join NATO that doesn't exist. So there's that. And we don't have to theorize about what he would have done. We can just look at what he did, and we know what he did, so we don't have to theorize about what he would have done, because just based on what he did, we can clearly deduce what he would have done, because what he did was damaging enough. And his stated goals and stated plans would have been devastating to the alliance. And if the current president was, in fact, weak, there also would have been no reason to invade. Because if the current president was weak, then there would have been no progress towards Ukraine joining NATO. There would have been no progress towards strengthening the alliance. There would have been nothing. If the current president was, in fact, weak, there would have been no progress towards repairing the damage that had been done over the previous 4 years. But the reality here on World One is that the current president is not weak. The current president actually supports international institutions, actually supports democratic institutions, actually supports the basic functioning of the American government, actually supports all of the things that keeps our republic strong and our international alliances strong. And that is the very specific threat to Russia that Putin couldn't stand and would not stand, and precipitated the continuation of the plan. Because, if Ukraine wasn't joining NATO, if NATO was continuing to fracture, if we were continuing down the path that we were on for the previous 4 years, there would have been no NATO for Ukraine to join. There was a weakened Western alliance, and if you have a weakened Western alliance, there's no incentive for them to join. So there would have been no need to take action. So the bullshit OAN talking point is flat out incorrect. It is as incorrect as the notion that Nazis are running Ukraine or fascists are running Ukraine. That is as bullshit. A is as bullshit as B. They are just ridiculous notions. And we can dispense with that now. But the shared history between the two countries, that is a real thing. The shared history is a real thing. The shared history between the people groups, that is a real thing. But the diversion of the history, the damage that was done during the modern shared history in the 50s and 60s, and the diversion of the history in the 80s and 90s when Ukraine decided to become an independent country, and the further diversion of those two histories in the early and mid 2000s and 2000 teens, when the people of Ukraine stood up with one voice, even amid the meddling and installment of a pro-Russian autocrat or potential autocrat, with the advice and counsel of one Paul Manafort, I might add. If the people stood up and said, this is not the path we want to go on, and the people stood up and ousted a very, very corrupt government, and by no stretch of the imagination is the government of Ukraine not corrupt. Well, by no measure are they any more corrupt than your normal Western government, or maybe just a little bit slightly more corrupt. But the difference is they're reforming. They're actively trying to get better. They're actively trying to align themselves with Western ideals and Western goals and Western. The people have demanded that they want a government to do this, and the government has stepped up and said, "You got it, we will." And that's commendable. That's remarkable. And it can also be said that the military has reformed itself, their tactics, their activities, and their general overall structure to more reflect a Western-style military organization, unlike the former Soviet-style organization that we have in Belarus and Russia. So even if they are not, but even if there were fascists in the government running the government of Ukraine, they are fascists running the government of Ukraine that is trying to reform the government and align the government and society towards a Western ideal and a Western structure for their economy, and a Western structure for their government, and a Western structure for their military, which is entirely different than what's going on. It's the exact opposite of what's going on in Russia, where you have white supremacists or Russian supremacists, Russian nationalists, who are doing the exact opposite, not reforming, not working towards Western-style democracy, not working toward Western-style economy, not working towards a Western-style military, but rather doing the exact opposite. Enacting laws that are xenophobic and homophobic, and really being put in place to support the growth of population, growth of the domestic population and internal population, versus creating a place that people want to come to grow the population, which is what you also see in the United States, two competing ideals of building a society and building a country where people want to come to it so you can continue to grow the population using both a birth rate and an immigration rate, versus an ideology and philosophy that where they don't want immigrants and would rather force women to have more babies so that you can grow the population from within, and it looks more like what you want it to look like, that's the two competing ideals in the United States. But in Russia, the one ideal has won out, and it is a stark difference in the future trajectory of the two countries, because let nobody ever tell you that the current abortion debate in the United States has anything to do with babies, right to life, religion, or any of that other nonsense. It is all about the declining population rate or the declining birth rate among white women and white men. That is 100% what the alarmism over abortion is about today in the United States. It's not what it was about in the 80s. It's not what it was about way back when in the 80s and 60s and 70s, and when the real abortion debate was happening, what about women's reproductive freedom and women's rights and families' rights to determine and plan the size of their family and how they want their family to grow and how they want their family to be. Today, they use a lot of that same language, but that language, the people who are championing the anti-birth control, anti-abortion, large family arguments are not. They don't give a shit about religious freedom or right to life or any of that crap. It is, I won't say 100%, but it's about 75%. It is 75% a white supremacist argument. When you have people walking in the streets going, "You will not replace us," that's what they're talking about. They're talking about the birth rate among certain groups of people versus the birth rates among other groups of people. And we can get into that topic of discussion very deeply on another day, but not today, because it is after 11 o'clock. And after 11 o'clock, I don't want to get into new deep discussions. New deep discussions are for another day. But let's scroll up through chat and see what else we got real quick. He just wants them to pay up. Yeah. Nonsense. More nonsense. He did take, wait, who took, hang on, let's ask, I need to drill into this question. Who took Ukraine's nukes? Nobody took Ukraine's nukes. Ukraine gave up their nukes in the 90s when they became independent, when they had an agreement with the United States, the former Soviet Union, Russian Federation now, and Britain to have territorial integrity. They would have territorial integrity if they gave up their nuclear weapons. They gave up their nuclear weapons. Nobody took their nuclear weapons from them. Who's gone? See you, GH? All right. So there you go. I mean, ultimately, what it boils down to, the one person to blame for Russia's invasion of Ukraine is Vladimir Putin. Nobody else ultimately is to blame because ultimately the decision to invade was his and his alone. He didn't have to make the decision. He didn't have to do it. He chose to do it. It didn't have to be done. There was literally no reason. The ascension of Ukraine to NATO could have been another decade in the offing before it even happened. A whole lot could have happened between now and when that happened. But what was also happening during that time was the Northern Alliance was getting stronger, tighter, and coming back together. The Northern Alliance was never going to be as fractured as it became prior to 2020. It was never going to be any more fractured now. It was never going to be any more fractured in the future than it was leading up to 2020. And it just, there was just not going to be, there was never going to be a better time. And if he wanted to, he miscalculated, I think, because again, the only person to blame is him. He made the decision to invade Ukraine. And I think he made a serious miscalculation because he expected the army to be able to roll straight into Kyiv, take over the Capitol buildings. The army was going to evaporate the same way the Georgian army evaporated. The people were going to greet them as liberators. What other fucking nonsense? Excuse me, it's getting late. they would be able to capture Zelensky, or Zelensky was going to flee the country and then put in their own government, have their referendum the same way they did in Crimea, and boom, Ukraine was going to vote in a referendum with a 95% approval rate to become a part of the Russian Federation. Even though in the 1990s, when they voted for independence, it was 92% of the entire country voted for independence, and no province in the country had less than 50% of the people voting for independence. Every single province voted for independence, and 95% was the total overall vote. So it was going to be a sham election. It was going to be a sham referendum. It was going to be a sham. I mean, it was all going to be a sham. But when the tanks started rolling, they could not accomplish their objective. They were met with a mobilized citizenry that did not want this to happen, and they fought like hell. And Slava Ukraini, bravo to them. I'm just fucking impressed as hell. And you can help. You can help the UNICEF, Red Cross of Poland, Red Cross of Ukraine. They're the World Kitchen. There are several refugee support groups that you can support. You can rent rooms through Airbnb. You can reach out to. You can go to OnlyFans and find Ukrainian actresses that you want to support if that's your thing. You can go to. You can go to TikTok or Instagram and find Ukrainian models to support directly. You can find Ukrainian businesses and buy their products when they are set back up and their shops are operational. You can do all kinds of things to help the people of Ukraine. If you have military service experience, you can join the Ukrainian Foreign Legion. I know there are plenty of people out there that are all like, I'll die for my family, I'll die for my ideals. Well, here's your fucking chance to die for your ideals. Pick up a gun, your fucking ideals, if they're freedom, liberty, fighting against tyranny and loss of freedoms, that is 100% what Russia's doing. They are attacking the same ideals that we claim to hold dear. Call the Ukrainian embassy, join up the Foreign Legion, go for it. Of course, I also know a whole lot of those folks that would die for their family, take a bullet for their family, but they wouldn't take a needle for their family. So I question whether or not they'll actually die for their family. I certainly don't want them defending my house. But there's a lot that we can done. And no, buying Ukrainian vodka is not one of the things that makes it even the tiniest fucking bit of difference. But sending direct cash payments to Red Cross, UNICEF, Doctors Without Borders, Médecins Sans Frontières, yeah, is the French name. All of these organizations, and it's just a simple Google search. Boom, have a whole list of them. Hell, you can go to Specs here in Texas. You can go to Specs. They've got signs on their cash registers. You can boop the little QR code, and it'll bring you to the donation site. All kinds of opportunities to directly support Ukrainians and Ukrainian refugees in this effort to fight against Russian tyranny and Russian imperialism. But ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I'm going to wrap this up because it is what, 11:30 now? Right about 11:30? Yeah, it's time to wrap this up. So Slava Ukraini, and bravo to the heroes of Ukraine. May they live forever in song and stories of lore. And you, my friends and family across the internets who join me for these little therapeutic sessions. Thank you so much. Cheers to you for your support. and may the wind always be at your back and the ground rise to your feet wherever you may travel. Cheers to all of you. May you live 100 years, and may I live 100 years but a day, so that I may never know a day without you in my life. Cheers and good night.